Cobra Kai Season 5 dropped on Netflix a little bit earlier than we expected, so today I'll be giving you my full thoughts on this season. Now before we get started, I wanted to say that the first half of this video will be spoiler free, and then in the last half of the video I will be completely spoiling it. Time codes will be in the description. Let's get started. Now if you weren't aware, I was a little bit underwhelmed and disappointed by Season 3, but this season, Season 5, just knocked it out of the park for me. I want to start off by talking about all the positives. All the plot lines that were set up at the end of Season 4 were paid off very well in this season, which is something I didn't think Season 4 did very well. The stakes are higher than ever, and this season definitely delivers on some of the best action sequences we've gotten in the show, and some of the best tension building. Terry Silver is a very good villain, and whenever he's on screen we get a sense of intimidation. The same thing would happen with Kreese, but I would argue that Terry Silver is a more intimidating villain than John Kreese. Obviously, at the end of Season 4, we were teased that Chosen would be coming back to help Daniel, and I think that he was a very well-written character and the most likable character for me. Without getting into spoilers, there is a new character that came back from Karate Kid 3 that I think was very underused in this season. Whenever he was on screen, it was super fun and I had such a fun time, but he was barely in it, and whenever he was, it was fun, but I don't think they wrote him in the best way they could have. The choreography in this season doesn't quite compare with the choreography of the last season, due to this season not having a big all-valley tournament like the last season did. But whenever there were fight scenes, I did think they were very enjoyable and well done. As you know, there are a lot of characters in this show, and I think for the most part, most of the characters got their time to shine in this season, which is definitely a positive for me, as I really like most of these characters. There are a couple of characters here and there that I'm not the hugest fan of, but I'll get into that more once I start talking about the negatives. Another big thing this show has to offer is the comedy, and this season definitely does deliver on the comedy, making me laugh out loud multiple times, making this one of the most comedic and funny seasons, but that does not take away from the tension or fight scenes at all. This is another season that's highly bingeable and just makes you want to watch every episode in one sitting. All the episodes have kind of confined storylines, but then at the end they give us a little cliffhanger, and that just makes you want to keep watching it, and that I think is a great thing for a show to have because it definitely helps keep the audience engaged. Now I do want to start talking about some of the negatives I have with this season, and the biggest one that comes to mind when I think of problems is the acting. There are multiple actors in this season that I just think didn't give good performances, such as the woman sensei that would help Terry Silver. Her acting just did not do it for me, and sadly, whenever she was on screen, I would lose interest. The actor playing the character Kenny is trying his best, but his performance just feels fake every time I see him. He's trying to be another intimidating Cobra Kai kid, but it just doesn't work at all for me. I also didn't like the performance the actor gave for Anthony LaRusso. The performance wasn't bad, but I just don't think the acting choices really fit his character. This season is also a lot more cheesy. For example, there's one episode where the Miyagi-Do kids and Eagle Fang kids are at a pool, but there's also the Cobra Kai kids there, and they're trying to separate sides to the pool, and it just comes off really cheesy. But the show does embrace that, and they know it's cheesy, so that makes it a little bit better. Like all the seasons, there are a couple episodes that I didn't like as much as others, and this season just felt a little bit different than the others. I don't know if it was the budget, but everything felt a little bit more cheap than the other seasons, which is something I definitely do not like. Unfortunately, you definitely can tell when the adult actors are fighting, they're doing some weird things with the speeds to make it look better, but it kind of just makes it look worse. I understand that some of these actors can't really fight that much because of their age, but it just takes me out of the moment when all the editors are doing weird things with the speeds. Another thing I wasn't the biggest fan of was the color grading from the Season 1 to now has really changed. From Season 1, it was kind of bleak, but it still did have colors. Now it's super colorful, especially in the beginning of the season, which isn't necessarily a horrible thing, but just a tiny nitpick I have. The pacing can be a little bit wonky throughout, but overall, I still recommend the season and think it's an amazing addition to this show. Now we'll start talking spoilers, so if you don't want to get spoiled for this season, I would recommend clicking off in 3, 2, 1. I think this should have been the last season to the show. Of course, I'm still excited for season 6, but I really wish that John Kreese actually did die in the beginning of episode 10, rather than him faking his death and escaping from jail. The music choice for Kreese's death, playing My Way by Frank Sinatra, was just an amazing choice in my opinion because it made it a lot more emotional. I think this would have been an amazing way to end the show off, and I'm not really sure where they're going to go for the next season besides fulfilling the plotline about Kreese. Other than the ending, I think that episode 10 might be my favorite episode of the entire show. Just the emotional payoff that it has is insane. Seeing Mike Barnes, Chosen, and Johnny all work together to fight Terry at the end was just so awesome because they were all Daniel's enemies from the original 3 films. So seeing them work together is great. I also loved how Daniel was stuck in the woods and then Stingray came up with the Cobra Kai car saying, "Come with me if you want to live." That was just such a hilarious line. And I think that Stingray was a hilarious character in the season, and I always love when he shows up. Tori's redemption was definitely paid off after the end of season 4 when she found out that Terry Silver was cheating, and I'm really glad that she changed her ways. Some of the other twists and turns didn't really work for me, like the one kid that I can't recall his name, that was an Eagle Fang karate student that was actually working for Cobra Kai. That was okay, it wasn't my favorite, and definitely could have been taken out instead. Having Terry Silver put all his faith in Kenny wasn't my favorite move because I don't really like the character of Kenny, so I kind of wish that wasn't included, but that's just my fault for not liking the character. But overall, I think this was an amazing season, and originally I had my score at an 8 out of 10, but then after seeing the masterpiece of an episode that was episode 10, I'm settling at a 9 out of 10 for this season.